New York Giants fans, I know a lot of you, like me, were shocked when the news came down that Joe Shane and Brian Dable were being retained. And I guess shocked isn't the word I'm looking for, more like disappointed. But surely we all thought that there would be some major changes in the coaching staff underneath Brian Dable. That is until we got word that defensive coordinator Shane Bowen was set to return, even with the announcement that his old coaching buddy, Mike Vrabel, was taking the job in New England. We've already seen one Giants front office member decide to go and join New England. And I think a lot of us were assuming that Shane Bowen might do the same. Now, while he may, and we just don't know yet, I have a easier, more like poignant question. Why is Shane Bowen back? I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I am Coach Gene Clemons, New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information from. Make sure that you hit that up for sure. Also, make sure that you hit the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you'll know anytime that we're dropping a new podcast. Thanks to everybody that hung out on Sunday at the Giant Issue Live, where we kind of went over some of the good, the bad, and the ugly from what was a 2024 season. I don't have a long time. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, but more importantly, an informative time. I wasn't just joking when I said, why is Shane Bowen back? I really meant it. If you remember back in the preseason, probably when you were watching this with me on our Hard Knocks live viewing parties, Brian Dable said to Joe Shane, hey, here's the guy. He's able, let's get somebody in here who stops the run. And he went about like running off all of the statistics that got people excited about Shane Bowen. And I remember being very critical, extremely critical of the Shane Bowen hire when it was made. Back before Hard Knocks came out, I was on the New York Giants, on several New York Giants podcasts, including with Patricia Traina, talking about how I didn't understand why they would go and get a guy who struggled defensively in Tennessee and bring him into the Giants where they had struggles. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, he's going to have better personnel and blah, 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 blah. And as I was watching Hard Knocks, they showed one episode where they were inside like the offices talking about personnel. And they talked about how they planned on using Isaiah Simmons and the fact that they planned on using Isaiah Simmons like a nickelback. I believe they were calling him the star or whatever. And when they did that, I was like, man, I don't know, because I can think of 2 to 3 better ways to use him than as a nickelback. However, if they're really going to use him like that, then cool. Like, you can get some advantages because you get to keep an extra linebacker on the field. And then obviously we got into the year and we saw them go out and spend money on a nickelback, spend draft capital on a nickelback. We saw them put that nickelback in play and play a lot of minutes. And then we didn't see a lot of Isaiah Simmons. We saw him in small packages, and I just thought, man, what a waste of talent. What a waste of talent to use in a defense that needs elite level athleticism and talent in it. And I was out on Shane Bowen early. And then the defense, it looked as if Shane Bowen was trying to change his spots, and the defense started to make some strides. They were holding teams to 20 points or less, and I was like, that should be good enough to win. The offense is wasting a playoff caliber defense, and then the dam broke. And a lot of people tried to blame it on injuries, but no, there were no injuries when this dam broke. Because when Kayvon Thibodeau went out, it really hurt the depth. But Azeez Ojulari was playing really well in Kayvon Thibodeau's absence. And when Thibodeau came back, I think Ojulari got injured, right? But like, it wasn't then that things started going. It was once people had enough film to figure out what Shane Bowen was trying to do with this Giants team, and it got bad. But I thought it would be fair to kind of take an assessment, a statistical assessment of what the Giants looked like last year on paper versus what the Giants look like this year on paper, right? So shout out to StatMuse, but I went and did a comparison of the 2023 and 2024 seasons, right? Outside of the win-loss record, by the way, the team lost 3 more games than they lost last year. You couldn't say that is in part due to defensive woes, but you could also say, it's offensively, right? I don't know. Here's what's interesting to me. The opponent's points per game, not very much different, right? In 2023, the Giants gave up 23.9 points per game. In 2024, they gave up 24.5. So essentially a half a point more this year. Not good, because that means you didn't get better, but not egregious, right? Not egregious. You didn't let it fall too far down, right? When it starts to get into some of these other things, this is where we start to see where this defense, and more importantly, where Shane Bowen failed as defensive coordinator of this defense. First downs. In 2023, the Giants gave up 267 first downs. In 2024, that was 301, right? What do first downs mean? It means more time of possession for the opponent. It means less time for the offense to be able to try to get something going. Third down percentage. In 2023, the third down percentage was 30.2. In 2024, that third down percentage was 35.3. 5 percentage points higher than in 2023. The fourth down percentage was 48.6% in 2023. It was 54.1% in 2024. That is 5.5 more points than the year before. But don't allow me to just be the prisoner of the moment. I wanted to go a little bit further. So I wanted to look at the pass defense. And in 2023, this defense is pass defense, right? It was ranked 19th in yards, 10th in touchdowns, 3rd in interceptions, right? 3rd in interceptions. In 2024, the yards, 8th, touchdowns, 9th, interceptions, 31st. So while the yards were lower, right? And while because raw numbers say, right, like the yards were less. In 2023, it was 38.98. In 2024, it was 35.80, right? So the yards went down, the touchdowns were 21 in 2023 and 23 in 2024. So the touchdowns didn't go down, but there were more touchdowns everywhere else, hence the ranking being lower. So they gave up more passing touchdowns this year, gave up less passing yards this year, did not intercept the ball worth a damn this year. 5 interceptions compared to 18 the year before, right? Here's where the thing that you got to get Shane Bowen out of here. Here's where you say, to me, Shane Bowen loses the benefit of another year. The rush defense in 2023 gave up 475 attempts, 2,251 yards, 24 touchdowns for 4.7 yards per attempt. In 2024, they gave up 503 attempts, 2,316 yards, and 18 touchdowns. So while they scored less touchdowns, right? While they scored less touchdowns, 4.6 yards per attempt. So while they scored less touchdowns, they gave up more yards, and offenses ran the ball more. You only reduced that yards per attempt by 0.1 yards per attempt. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a failure on all sides. Like, how can you say, hey, we're moving forward with that? No explosion, no explosiveness, no takeaways, right? No takeaways, nothing that gets people like excited for what you're doing defensively. None of that. None of that at all. In 2023, right? If we're looking at defensive numbers the way we should be looking at defensive numbers, in 2023, with less talent, right? With less talent, with less depth, with them trading away Leonard Williams in the middle of a season, all of those things combined, they had, without people being fully healthy, without Brian Burns, right? They had 34 sacks. In 2024, they increased the sack number, right? They increased the sack number. It's 45 sacks. But you added what people were saying was supposed to be an all-world caliber defensive end, and you got the services of Azeez Ojulari being healthy for most of the season. Like, I know that some people look over here and go, well, the team wasn't that great. But whose fault is that? Right? The same stuff. Do you think for a moment that Wink Martindale, his defense would not have been much, much better if he were able to plug a Brian Burns on the opposite side? If Boogie Basham isn't a major piece of the defense, if Boogie Basham was just like a dude that came off to give you a little bit of depth on plays here and there, instead of having to rely on him, Jihad Ward having to rely on him to be a major pass rusher, you trade those dudes out for a Brian Burns? You don't think that Wink Martindale wouldn't have been happy to have the services of a healthy and motivated Azeez Ojulari? Like, when we look at the raw numbers, it's like, well, what improved? What did he really make better? He was supposed to be a run defense dude. The run defense Raw numbers got worse outside of touchdowns, and the averages dropped by 0.1, 4.7 to 4.6. Is that really getting the job done? And now you want to put your final season, your what people are saying is your make or break season. Like we either get it going in the right direction this year or we're all out of a job. You want to put that and hang that on Shane Bowen's back? Why is he back? Why is he still here? All of the talented defensive coaches who are now looking for jobs, Robert Saleh is right next door. Why are you not ringing his doorbell? Right? All of these young and up and coming, because remember, like the visionaries and the talented ones, they're not just on the offensive side. I could argue you actually get more visionaries, more gurus, more talented people on the defensive side, because most defensive coaches spend a lot more time looking at offense than offensive coaches spend looking at defenses. Why? Because offenses are trying to look at other offenses to see what they can steal. Defensive coaches are looking at offenses to see what they can steal. That's why you see these defensive coaches who really understand how to scheme you up. It's almost as if they're in the offensive coach's head. Why? Because they are. Because they've studied that offense, because they've studied how that offense works. They know the places that the ball absolutely has to go when it has to come out right now. They apply pressure. Oh man, the jokes for Wink Martindale were heavy early on when Michigan was losing games because they didn't have any offense, not because the defense was bad, but because they didn't have any offense. Oh, look at Wink. He can't stop college offenses. A lot of people can't stop college offenses. But Wink Martindale shut down that Ohio State offense that's been running roughshod over the entire college football playoff. That Wink Martindale defense shut down that Kalen DeBoer offense at Alabama with a future pros all over the place. That's what Wink Martindale did in two of the most high pressure situations where people had said, oh, they're going to get blown out. They shouldn't be on the same field. Blah, 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 blah. His defense came out, stood up, got the job done. Why? Because what he does extremely well, he always does extremely well. Can somebody tell me what it is that Shane Bowen does extremely well? And if you say stop the run, I might throw up in my mouth. You do know that when he was with Tennessee, he wasn't the defensive coordinator in the heyday, in the elite years of the Titans. That was somebody else. And when he got the job to be the defensive coordinator, their pass defense was so bad that the running numbers were better because people didn't have to run to beat them. They just passed all over them. The passing was terrible. Everybody blamed it on the talent. So then he came to a Giants team that supposedly had more talent, that they added more talent to, that they drafted more talent, that they put the pieces in place, and he was still bad. Pass defense was still terrible. The run defense was still bad. What does he do well? And now the thought process is, oh, well, the Giants need to, if they're going to keep him, they need to bring in his guys. Let me just tell you something as someone who's coached for the better part of 20 something years now, right? 20 years that I've been coaching, another 10 years of playing. You do not bring in talent to match a coordinator's offense and or defense. You bring in the best talent, right? You bring in the best talent and you hire coordinators who are talented enough to use that talent the correct way. I don't want to hear, oh, you need somebody to go next to Dexter Lawrence. No, you don't. You don't need to spend an elite, like a top 5 pick on a defensive tackle so that he can go be next to Dexter Lawrence when Dexter Lawrence is a defensive tackle that's so great. He demands double teams to where the other defensive tackle is getting one-on-one matchups. You don't need to go out and get a quote unquote blue chip talent to do that. You need to go and find the Dexter Lawrence at the next level. You need to go and find your Dexter Lawrence in the secondary. You need to go and find your Dexter Lawrence in the linebacker core. You need to go and find your Dexter Lawrence in every group that you have. And then you need to surround them with talent that the defensive and offensive coordinators understand how to get the best out of. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the job. And Shane Bowen has not done that job. What are we going to be sitting here saying in 2025 at the end of the year, or excuse me, in 2026 at the end of the year when the Giants have given up another 2,500 yards, 2,300 yards rushing? Oh, well, we need to get Bowen another. Either you got the goods or you don't. And Shane Bowen has shown as a defensive coordinator, he does not have the goods. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have today. New York Giants on SI. Make sure you go there for all your New York Giants news and information. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button here. Subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. What do you think? What about Shane Bowen excites you for 2025? Or are you like me where you don't feel excited about Shane Bowen in 2025? I want to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue.